So my talk is fear of public speaking and presentations. Do you get a dry mouth before speaking in meetings? Does your heart beat really quickly when you have to do a presentation about a project to your peers or work or anything? I really wanted to do a talk, somehow at Codebar, but I kept upsetting myself thinking about it. I'm one of these people that has a fear of public speaking, actually, and sort of gets anxiety about it. So I thought, rather than do a technical presentation, because there's some brilliant people talking about that at Codebar, I thought, why not do a talk on actually presenting and find out from other people some really good tips to push your message across and to become eloquent in what you're saying. So I'll go into a little bit into the reasons why we get anxiety. I think a lot of people are familiar with the fight or flight response that triggers anxiety. So, that's one thing. But I also want to talk a little bit about imposter syndrome, because I know that's come up today in later talks, and why I think it might be a bit of a misnomer. I'll also talk about how failing safely is critical as well, and what I mean by that. And I'll show how showing your authentic passions and getting your message across because you want to push that message, you're motivated for people to hear it. If you get that as a habit, then that can overcome a lot of your nerves because you're passionate about what you're saying. So people engage more with you with that kind of attitude. Since, like, many of us have to show up on Zoom at the moment, present screens and present work remotely, this session is geared to the people to get over your imposter syndrome and anxiety. And I think, it's one of those things where, because we're in lockdown and we're doing Zoom meetings all the time, maybe that's different to face-to-face, but you still have those nerves when you've got to use your voice and actually think about what you have to say in a kind of way that's unusual to you. So why do people get anxiety about public speaking? Well, they say that in polls that the top fear is actually public speaking, above death. Death is number 2. So public speaking is something that is shared, that this fear of public speaking is shared so commonly. It's a really common kind of phobia, and the thought of public speaking and being vulnerable and using your voice in front of lots of strangers with eyes upon you, well that kind of brings up this primal instinct, this fight or flight. It's like we've evolved to avoid danger. And if you imagine our ancestors were on the savannah and getting chased by lions and things like that, it's kind of a similar feeling, I think, that we're wired to get this adrenaline to make us run. And so that's what's happening. Your body is feeling this fear because you feel under threat. So how do you get over that? I mean, that's what this talk, I think, is going to be geared towards. And I've talked about fear of public speaking and presentations. That's the name of this talk. But, it's kind of for any kind of, it's more broad than public speaking. In fact, I don't like the word public speaking because it makes it sound like, you're going to do some official lecture, or you're going to, talk at Oxford University or something. It's not quite public, right? You're my friends. I'm talking to Codebar. This is easy because, I know I've got a good audience. So I'm just going to call it fear of speaking and presentations. And then maybe this just not even fear, because actually just talking about how you can speak well and eloquently and get your message across. And, a lot of it is actually not what you think. It's not the content of what you're saying sometimes. It's actually the way that you're delivering it. So what I'm learning from reading up about a lot of this is there's a lot to do with posture and breathing and being engaged, So I'm terrible at being eloquent. It's just the way my brain works. I say a lot and people probably think, like, she doesn't know what she's talking about. But if you can hold your gaze and really push your message and be passionate about it, I think it engages people a lot more. So I'll briefly say where I come from. I've got a background in software engineering. So I've had 25 years of programming. And I'm now promoted to a software, an engineering manager at my current workplace, which is Avalara. This is amazing for me to be a manager. I never thought I would get there, and I've only been in that position for just over a month. And I found it is a different job. There's a lot more engagement with people and kind of trying to persuade people, but also listening. There's a lot of listening. And I think that really suits me, but it's a learning process for me. I come from this background of just sitting and programming and being analytical, and actually, you know, having one-to-ones with people more than just talking to a crowd of people. And especially when they're your peers and they're executives, right? That's terrifying. They're in charge of your job, you know, and they could turn around and criticize you at a drop of a hat. So, you know, it's important. The safety part I'm going to go into, but this feeling of safety when you do talks is kind of crucial. Okay. What else shall I say about this? I think that's it. My current projects and passions I was going to talk about. I don't know if I've got time, but, you know, I one of the things that persuaded me to go into leadership was I volunteer. So if you kind of volunteer, you get out of your comfort zone sometimes. I volunteer for Trans Pride Brighton, which do these kind of marches and park events once a year. And I found myself, didn't expect it, I found myself in charge of 200 people and, you know, coordinating them and having to shout over a megaphone. So it took me well out of my comfort zone. If you manage to speak over a megaphone, then I think you can safely say, you know, you've got over your fear of public speaking. Okay, so I kind of reached out to a few friends because, or people on the internet that I knew that were brilliant speakers, and I just wanted to kind of find out what their techniques were, how they approach this. So I asked them some questions like, you know, what encourages you to do presentations and talks? You know, what motivates you? Do you have any tips on, you know, how to prepare? And how do you deal with nerves? You know, how do you get over that? And I started with Alice, who's Alice is one of my best friends in Brighton, UK. She's a poet. She moved to Sussex several years ago, and she was originally a psychiatric nurse. And now she does sort of these speaking events, acting and poetry. And she sort of said, well, I don't really get nerves anymore because I'm very passionate about what I'm saying, and I've got a desire for people to hear my message. Now, Alice talks a lot about love, transition. She talks about sexuality. She talks about minorities, all these things that really grab people. And I come away from her poems often in tears. I think, you know, it really grabs you. And the way she sort of does her poetry is, it can be downbeat actually. But it's authentic. It's coming from her heart. And I think that's where she succeeds and where she loses the nerves, because she just feels this passion and this motivation. So I think that's really important part of talking. Now, you might be having to talk about something much more technical. Alice is not technical. She won't mind me saying that, but she's got no clue. I shouldn't say that, but she's, you know, she tries, but she is really great about, you know, infusing people and helping people out. So what shall I say about Alice? Oh yeah, so if we're talking about technical issues and technical things like software programming, maybe you've found a new method that helps you work and you want to share it. Well, you can be passionate about that. If you're interested in a subject and you find that you want to voice that you found this new library, you can do a talk on that. You can speak eloquently at it, and just kind of practice that safely of talking about things that you're really passionate about. One other thing about Alice that she told me, which I loved, this was about handling nerves. When she was a nurse, she managed several other junior nurses who had a real fear of using needles and kind of taking blood or giving medicine with needles or giving injections. And she said, what she did was she had a room with pillows, and she gave them all needles. And they went in this room and just started stabbing the pillows and just getting that kind of worry out of their system and just stabbing these pillows with needles, which I thought was hilarious, just imagining all these nurses going. But she said what it did was it calmed them. It got all these kind of angst and worry out of their system. And they felt much more calm when they were kind of actually having to do real injections on people. So that was a lovely story. So I'll move on to Naomi. I hope you can see the screen, by the way. Naomi Ceda, who is she was part of the Python Foundation group, and she basically written books. She's done talks. She's just does transcode. She was a codebar participant for years when she was in UK. And I got in touch with her because of the events that she put on, like transcode. But she shared a really interesting post actually about imposter syndrome. So, I think most people are aware of imposter syndrome. If you're not, it's this idea that, you're not good enough at what you're currently achieving. So you shouldn't be there because you're an imposter. You're just lying to people about how good you are about something. And they're going to find you out any time and snitch you. Now, imposters tend to be these sort of high achievers, people that are quite perfectionist, women, minorities. And Naomi admits to being an imposter. She's written books and done talks, and she doesn't think she's good enough. And she shared this article, which really changed my mind about imposter syndrome, which was stop telling women that they've got imposter syndrome. And really, it kind of challenged this idea that it's a syndrome, that it's something inbuilt into us, that we've got this kind of, something wrong with us we need to fix, the syndrome. And it talks a lot about bias and how you can be in an environment that keeps telling you in small ways that you might not be good enough because of who you are. I really liked that article because it rang true for me. When I transitioned at work, I was achieving quite good things as a software developer, but I suddenly heard my voice, lose its passion and people talking over me. So there were certain things about that transition that highlighted to me that there are systematic biases. So I think in that regard, Naomi was right on the money. And she basically talks about how she's an imposter because she went through a similar thing of transitioning at work. And she said previous to transitioning, people didn't guess that, that she was trans and everything. And she said she hid it so well. She was kind of an imposter for years anyway. But I recommend her talks. She just got a few talks online about this, and she's got very good humor when she comes up and talks. Another thing that really helps. Okay, I'll move on to Deborah Francis White, who is a speaker. She does a podcast called The Guilty Feminist, if you've heard of her. Check her out. She does this kind of stand-up, but she also delivers presentations and talks on how to deliver good presentations. She coaches, really. She's got a great talk online where she does this kind of routine where she talks a lot about posture and presence and how you can basically, you know, there's breathing techniques as well, but there's posture. And one of the things she sort of does in the talk is kind of give herself stage fright, which is really amazing. But she kind of like goes, well, you know, like if I go like this and back away, like kind of go on my back foot, I'm kind of starting to shake, you know, I'm feeling a bit kind of like, you know, I don't want to be here. How do I get out of it? The other thing is, you know, people that stand behind these podiums and have their PowerPoint, huge big PowerPoints, and hide with, essentially they're hiding, right, from the lions that are going to attack them. They've got these big PowerPoint slides that they're kind of directing attention to rather than their own voice. And she sort of says, well, you know, use PowerPoint and things, but just kind of focus on what you're trying to say. You know, people don't know what to do with their hands. She says it's ridiculous. You know, just be yourself, be authentic, and you know, try and focus on your posture. I really like that. And one of her kind of catchphrases is, you know, find the tiger, be a lion. That's it. So, you know, with lions, they're sort of like this, and their head is very still. So they're checking you out, and they're kind of a little bit scary, but also they've got kind of some charisma about them. And that's what Deborah Francis White's talks are about, is about charisma. Whereas if you kind of move your head around and you don't know what you're talking about, you know. So I'm kind of trying to repeat some of the things she said in the talk, but definitely check that out. It's really hilarious, and it gives you a really good idea of what small changes you can make to your body language to really get a message across. You know, even on Zoom, just the way you talk and you have your head kind of in fixed position and things like that, it really can help. Next, hoping you can read Cassie Evans, who was a codebar organizer, a creative developer. I mean, she's done some amazing talks that just blew me away on things like CSS and design and these techniques that she's learned from, you know, from the ground up. And so she gave me some quotes. She says, you know, again, it's the passion behind what she's saying. She really enjoys people learning about web technologies. She says, I feel like the modern web is quite a hostile place for the front-end developers. As a designer turned developer, I struggle to find my space in an industry that devalues creativity. I feel that now I've found it. The least I can do is signpost the route for other people like me. It's just, she's put other people first, and she wants people to hear that message about, you know, web development. And you know, she knows how tricky it can be as a beginner. She really wants to kind of push that across. So that's encouraging her. In terms of tips, she says, don't ever try to prepare by going through your talk with one or two close friends. It's way harder to talk in front of people you're close to. Yeah, that's one thing I nearly did. I had my friend Cass around, and I said, can you help me? I need to practice this talk. And we ended up just drinking wine. So, you know, probably a good thing. Also, she says, focus on the first 5 minutes and the last 5 minutes, because the first 5 minutes is the hardest. You're most nervous then. And then the last 5 minutes is what people will remember. Make sure you're taking lots of breaks to breathe, which I'm probably not doing enough now, but, you know, that's a good point. You know, it's posture and breathing. And if you're really anxious, get some beta blockers. I swear by propranolol. Propranolol. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't advise that, but, you know, if that helps, that's a good idea. So I'll move on to Reefa. Reefa, I did a talk for Reefa on Monday. In fact, I'm not a speaker at all, and she just said, "Oh, you're doing codebar. Perhaps you could do a talk for me." So I did a chat about transitioning at work, but also I talked about safety, and what it was like being a developer for 25 years, breaking things, and how you can make a safe environment for yourself and still learn. But anyway, yeah, enough about me. Reefa is a event organizer and coach. She's very prominent in software field. She champions diversity and inclusion. She does like public speaking coaching, and yeah, very similar. What she said is that she's got a very big drive to kind of promote women and minorities in tech. She gets nerves as well, but she can cope with them with breathing and techniques like meditation. And she's actually doing a session tomorrow at the wellbeing session. I think it's the last one, and it will be a kind of hopefully a meditative, relaxing, just end of the festival, chill out. So I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you, Reefa. Even Rose. Yeah. So Rose, I met through the trans autistic community. She's a singer-songwriter. She's written so many albums, put them all on Bandcamp. And she's got this amazing talent for public speaking and kind of intellectual conversation. So one of the things I asked her was, how do you not get nerves going up there? She said, she's always done talking. She did talking at school. She wanted to be a stand-up comedian, and she imagined herself doing that kind of thing, standing up and talking, like I'm doing now, standing up, it feels weird at first, but I'm glad I did this. Anyway, she said that at school she was bullied. She was the odd one out, but public speaking kind of gave her a way out of it, and she kind of did assemblies, and she got some respect and control back, and she was inspired by her teachers who kind of pushed her into that thing and she said she's motivated to help other people as well, so it's a common theme. Anissa, I've only got a few more of these. Anissa Chaudhry is a professional singer, community engagement expert, and she runs choirs. She actually did voice coaching with me. So the voice coaching was about projecting and singing, actually. So she taught me how to kind of breathe and sing and kind of fill my lungs and kind of control when I breathe and how to get the timing right. And that was really, really useful. So, singing is actually a good way of practicing your voice. Your voice is an instrument. There's a book that I've been reading called Finding Your Voice, which I'll put a link to, but that's all about that. It's all about how to use your voice both physically and, in what you say. Let's see. So I'm running to the end now, I think. I wanted to talk a little bit about, I've talked about motivation and passion quite a bit. And, we've talked about the internal imposter thing, which I think is a misnomer. As Naomi said, this idea that it's a syndrome perhaps doesn't work when there's kind of an environment where you don't feel safe to be yourself. It's actually perhaps other people giving you the message that you don't know what you're talking about. And sometimes to get over that, you just need to practice, and start believing in yourself, because the more you practice in safe environments, the more you'll succeed. So, like things like codebar, and actually there's a code pen talk in Brighton, and these small groups where you can get up for 5 minutes and show a little project that you've done are brilliant for that, because you have 5 minutes, you just get up and speak, and then you can sit down, and there's no worry about failing, right? You can just do it and practice, get used to it. And, don't go and talk at the Royal Albert Hall on your first speaking event, basically. do small things, learn, practice, coach yourself, and get better at it. And don't fear failure, and then I think that imposter syndrome should start going away, but there's some famous imposter people that say they have imposter syndrome. People like Kate Winslet, for instance, you know, amazing. But, you know, everyone gets it, I think. It's a very common thing. Posture and balance I've talked about because, you know, that was a good part of Deborah Francis White's talk, actually. What I'm doing at the moment, is this going to work? I've practiced this. What I'm doing at the moment with my feet is kind of balancing so that my whole body weight is kind of centered. And I'm kind of pushing forward on my toes a little bit, but I'm not, if I go backwards, then I sort of feel more nervous. But honestly, if you try this, just try standing for a while and getting your balance so that you feel very centered and grounded. That kind of does wonders, actually, for things. Yeah, that's my cat. So yeah, breathing I'm not so good at. I get quite breathy, but you know, it is just practice, and people like Rifa will show us how to breathe and meditate and learn that kind of just slowing down. You can tell in your voice just slowing down. I'm really into making it safe to fail, and I think what I've learned from development over many years is you know, you've maybe heard of agile methodologies or agile kind of people over process, and you know, putting people first. And I'm into modern agile as well, because modern agile is actually a website and a movement. It's about kind of making safety a prerequisite and experimenting, learning. So I started to learn how to test and do unit testing and TDD. And if you haven't heard of these things, they're kind of ways of testing but breaking your code. You're constantly breaking code. Sort of, you're trying to fix it all the time. Oh dear, I might have cut out. I think I have. Let me see if I can change my settings. Yeah, come on. I don't know if that's worked, but hello. I don't know if you can see me.
Hey Michelle, we can see you now. Hear you. Yeah, your video is back. I know hopping sometimes it might be good to leave and then just come back. Sometimes the audio freaks out a little bit. Yeah, you got me again. It's all good. Hope everyone's having fun. Some really useful tips in there. Don't fear failure. I really like that. I think it's super important and scary, but yeah, this is a really great talk. She'll be back in a minute. Hello. We can hear you.
Oh, thank goodness. I'm so sorry. I don't know how long that went on for, but I told you.
No, it wasn't that long at all. Do you want to share your screen again and I'll leave?
Yeah, I've only got a bit left.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. I'll leave and you can.
Thank you. Let's get this done. Okay, so I don't know where I left you, but basically, I think I was talking about making it safe to fail, and then it promptly did, which is quite funny. But again, right, it's safe. It doesn't matter. You know, these things happen, and there are technical issues sometimes, but shouldn't throw the whole festival, right? So when you're releasing software, a lot of the big companies, they release small parts at a time. They turn features on slowly, and they can back them out very quickly. So, you know, if you write a bug, it kind of gets caught as early as possible, and you get that feedback. And I think, you know, just that's kind of what modern agile is about, and what I'm trying to say. Deborah did a great talk about, you know, having that posture and that presence and charisma. That's what I mean by lion. Think about being a lioness, you know, like when you're talking in stand-ups and things. And here's some they're kind of links that I'll put in the chat later. So stop telling women they have imposter syndrome was the article I read from Naomi. Too. Finding Your Voice, that's the book. I recommend. And Stage Fright is a great YouTube video from TEDx that Deborah Francis White did. Thank you very much, Codebar, and have a great day. I hope the festival goes well, and looking forward to the rest of the talks today.
Hello, thank you so much for that talk.
Yeah, good. Hope it was useful.
It was, and I think it was such a good way to start the career day. Does anyone have any questions for Michelle? Oh, someone's linked the Stop Telling Women You Have Imposter Syndrome, which is good. Thank you, great tips.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you.
That's good. No one's got any questions. We've got 20 minutes until the next session. So this might be just a good opportunity to tell you about the networking tab, which is where if you pop into the networking tab, you will get randomly paired with someone else at the conference for 5 minutes. And it's a really nice way to meet people, chat. You know, you only get 5 minutes, so you really quickly have to say, oh, tell me everything about you. What do you do and stuff? So yeah, we've got 20 minutes until the next talk. So if we want to do that, or, you know, people can go and take a break and get another tea or coffee, that's fine. There are no questions coming in. So hugely thank you for your session. And yeah, I hope you stick around and enjoy some more of the festival. Oh, we have. Do you have any tips on knowing when you're ready to move from team member to team leader / manager?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I think, yeah, becoming a team lead is a different proposal than actually learning code. So get your technical knowledge to a certain level where you can actually interact with people and learn from them. But when you become a manager, I think what I've noticed is it's much more about everyone else and getting them to where they want to go. So it helps if you know your technical stuff. Yeah, I'm kind of new to it. I think it's a new job, really. That's the way you got to look at it. The other way you can go as a coder is talk about architecture and go that route of becoming a technical expert in your field. So don't feel like you have to move to a people manager. But for me, it's great because I'm quite passionate about it, and I'm really enjoying that side of the business.
Cool.
Hopefully that answers.
Any other questions? No. Yeah.
Yeah, feel free to reach out, and I can answer things.
I did share your Twitter higher up in the chat, so yeah.
Great.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much.